Make It Right, the manufacturing podcast.
Welcome to the Make It Right podcast with Kevin Snook and Janet Eastman. This is episode 10, and thanks very much for joining us. We are continuing to take questions from people in the manufacturing industry, and we're getting some really interesting ones. Kevin, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. And I'm stoked that we're on episode 10 already.
I know, it's great, isn't it? This is fantastic. And people are actually asking questions directly about your Align process. And so they're talking about A from Align. Aim from the heart is what A stands for. And the question is, what do I do if I don't feel passionate about the job?
That's a great question. And I think a lot of us are under a lot of pressure to feel like we have to be passionate. It's a big word at the moment. You know, what is your passion? What is your mission? What is it that's going on in your life that's making you so, interested in this work that you're doing? When a lot of people have, been through a lot of challenges, and passion isn't necessarily the top word that would come to mind for a lot of people. And I think that's part of the issue, not only in the manufacturing industry. I think that's an issue in the majority of people's lives at the moment. There's a lot of pressure to feel like they have to be passionate, otherwise they're not spending their time wisely. And I would say, don't get hung up on this idea of passion or mission, or I have to have this massive world-changing view that is going to push me forward. I do think, however, that if people are going to spend 10 or 12 hours of their day, 5 or 6 days a week doing something, then it ought to be something that engages them, makes them feel like they're spending their time in a worthwhile manner, and is allowing them to inspire the people around them as well. And in order to inspire the people around you, you have to feel inspired. There has to be something about the work that you're doing that is making you feel excited or inspired, or like you want to get up each day and move forward. And a lot of people I feel, and I've seen around the business, have not allowed themselves to do that these days. The world is so busy, and so everything seems to be so critical that taking a few minutes to step back and say, look, what do I really want to do? What would be an ideal day for me? How would I structure just today so that I really enjoyed it? And by the time that I got home, I felt like I'd had a worthwhile day at work, and I'd made some difference, and started to lead myself towards this life that I love, rather than, a life that is dragging me down. And so I think it's a matter of time. You need to spend a little bit of time with yourself, do a bit of self-analysis, become self-aware, and see what are the things that you love doing about your part of the business. What are the things that you're willing to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, excitedly thinking about, or checking about, or learning about. Now, they're great ways to find the passion, because those things that you're doing naturally and that you feel very excited about, they're the things where your passion lies. And most of us got into the business, or parts of our business, because there was something about us that inspired us, that drove us, that made us excited. And what I'd like to encourage people to do is to do more of those things. Look at the parts of your work that you thoroughly enjoy, and then create the rest of your team and your work and your environment around those parts of it. That, to me, is where you start to leverage your passion. That's where you start to have days that you thoroughly enjoy, and then the people around you start to feel that as well. What it does mean is that you need to find people to do the parts of the work that don't necessarily give you a huge amount of joy. And you'll find that there are other people that get joy out of doing the things that you don't particularly like to do. And so finding the right team, building the right team, but knowing where your direction is taking you, I think is the first step.
We've got a question here that's, what happens if we get our frontline employees hyped about the Align process, and then we can't handle all of the requests that come in for help and support? So they have something. Can you explain more about the dimmer switch and the laser analogy?
Okay, so there is this fear that once we start to get a very high level of employee engagement and employee involvement, that the leadership will become overwhelmed with people that are excited and want to come up with new ideas and expect their ideas to be put in place, and so there's in many organizations, because of the fear of that, they kind of dim down or dumb down, if you like, the organization, with less training and terrible food in the canteen and whatever they can do, really bad shift patterns so that everybody's tired all the time. And it's almost like those things have been designed to dumb down or dim down the energy of the organization. And what I'm saying is that we must not be afraid of our employees playing a full role in the business. And that means coming up with great ideas. And in order to do that, all of those things I just mentioned, we need to switch those around. We need to give people knowledge. We need to give people data. We need to give people great food in the canteen. We need to make the shift patterns work so that when people come back to work, they feel alive. And we need to really ramp up that energy and the enthusiasm and the ideas. And then what we do, rather than dimming it down because it becomes too much for us to handle, we laser focus that on the direction and the purpose of the business. And so there's two different ways that you can manage energy. One is that you can kind of push it back into the box. The other way is that you use that energy, you laser focus it, and you can cut through anything. And that's where I'm saying, yes, do energize your people. Do give them the opportunity to come up with ideas and then talk to them, listen to them. You don't have to put all the ideas in place. If you're absolutely clear on the direction for your business, it's really easy to have that conversation with an individual and say, you know what, that is a fantastic idea, but it's not on our radar right at the moment. It's not a priority for us right now, and this is the reason why. And so please keep coming up with the ideas. Give us as many ideas as you can to help take us directly in this very clear direction that we have for the business. And that's when we start to focus this energy and this enthusiasm, when we keep it there, but we keep it focused on where we need to go.
You talk about this dimmer switch, and I think this kind of relates to the question that we just talked about. When you have staff members or people on your team that just aren't feeling passionate about their business, about the business, perhaps it's because the dimmer switch is on.
Yeah.
And if you start to turn that up and brighten things up and feed them with information and whatnot, you may inspire them to get back interested in the business.
Absolutely. And that's the same with all of our lives. If you are feeling like you are not full of energy and you're not laser focused on something, it's because over a period of time, you've had that dimmer switch on. And that means maybe you've been eating bad food, and maybe you've been, getting overly tired and not taking care of your body and the other things that we need to do to have high energy and to have high focus and high purpose. And so changing the conditions, in our own lives is the same as changing the conditions in a workplace. We don't want to be afraid of having so much energy. We want to develop that energy, but make sure that it's really focused on where we want to go.
Agile is a popular word in the industry. So companies are expected to be able to respond rapidly to external situations. Agility is important, but how do you know when you're being agile enough?
Agile is a very important. It's an important word that is coming up more and more, and it is an important factor. Agility is this ability to be able to move from one situation to another effectively and efficiently. And so, what would I say about that? There's two ways that I look at this. One of them is kind of the ability to flex from one situation to another all the time. This flexibility of a situation. The other one is stability. And typically a sales or a marketing department want a manufacturing department to be highly flexible. They want to be able to offer whatever they can, whatever they want to offer to the market as rapidly as possible, move with the market demand. Typically, a manufacturing production floor wants stability, because with stability, there's less change. You can drive out some of the costs of change. You can become less variability in your production floor. And so you have this pull of two different groups. Sales and marketing want you to be very flexible. Manufacturing tend to prefer to be stable. So what we need to do is to build a stable base first to make sure that we're reliable. And then within that stability, don't become comfortable with the stability. Keep pushing our manufacturing floor to become more agile, to become more flexible. That might be rapid changeover. That might be, reducing the amount of downtime that we have with the equipment. We have to become more flexible. That's the way the world is moving. We have to become more agile. But we need to make sure that at each stage of that increased flexibility, there's enough stability that the business gets the right return on investment from each step. We don't want to be building in losses because of the need to move and respond. We want to be eliminating losses and then giving ourselves the opportunity to effectively respond.
Because ultimately, the consumer wants a good, reliable product.
Yeah, and they
Right.
want innovation. So they want both. They want the new product, they want innovation, but they want to make sure that as they get that innovation, they're getting it reliably, with very good quality, and they're getting it for the best possible cost. And so there's always this balance between the two. And, if you buy your new widget, you want to make sure that you're getting best value for that. And value is a mixture of quality and cost.
Okay. We've got an interesting question here, which I'm pretty sure you've run into this before, but the question is, you talk a lot about frontline employees and ownership, but to be frank, most of my employees just want to get their paycheck for the minimum effort and go home. How do I start to get them more engaged?
Yeah, first of all, I would say I'm really pleased that you're looking to get them more engaged, because that is the first step. The idea of being able to have more employee engagement, more frontline involvement in the business, I think is critical. So that's a good sign. But perhaps the other part of the question is you're looking at it the wrong way. To say that they just want to get their paycheck and go home, I truly don't believe that. I don't know one individual in the world that just wants to, be dumbed down for the day, get their money and go back home. When you actually talk to the frontline employees, they want to be involved. Their family's prosperity is on the line with this job. They wouldn't be doing this job if it wasn't the way that they could be bringing in some improvements to their families' lives. And so it's a critical job for them. They have more to lose than most of the managers in the business do. And they want to be involved. They want to be engaged. And the key is, how do we do that? We start by talking to them. We help them understand where the business is going, what's their critical part in the business, how it's so important that they are playing to their highest game to help the company move forward. And we start that conversation. And I'll challenge any leader who can go and have that conversation with a couple of their frontline employees and come back to me and say that these guys are all dumbed down and they don't really care about the business. They just want their paycheck and go home. I truly do not believe that that's the way the world works.
I think life's too short to probably live that way. So I agree. Most people are not working for just the paycheck.
But the dimmer switch has done that, Janet. Over years of not being listened to and being put in crappy environments and being fed bad food, and that dimmer switch has had an effect on all of us. And that seems to be a theme through this the podcast today. But it doesn't matter whether it's your frontline employees or it's your CEO. We're all being subjected to some kind of dimmer switch over a period of time. And as the leader in a part of the business, it's your responsibility to turn that back on again, turn the energy up, and get that energy laser focused on where we're moving.
Okay, Kevin, I think we'll leave it there. Until next time, when I think we have a couple of guests that we've got lined up in the coming weeks too. So if you have manufacturing questions, please do send them in to us at kevin@makeitrightbook.com and send us your questions and we'll answer them on the podcast. And we've got a couple of guests coming up in the coming weeks that we're going to introduce you to as well. Kevin, thanks very much for the insight as always. It's always a really good learning experience for me as well as our listeners.
Great. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. So the book is called Make It Right, 5 Steps to Align Your Business from the Front Line to the Bottom Line. And this is the Make It Right podcast. Until next time, thanks very much for listening.